Okay, we are going to reconvene, end our adjournment and reconvene. Theoretically, the next item on our agenda is a series of administrative issues, item number 4. But I think we will skip ahead and invite Mr. Robinson, who I think is here. This is from the Mass Performing Arts Council.
It's from Bay State.
Bay State.
Bay State Health.
Who's part of it, yeah. Great. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. This is on the issue of the Partners for a Healthier Community.
Correct, that's
Right, okay, good. We do have, thank you. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I will. I'm Frank Robinson. I'm the Executive Director for Partners for a Healthier Community. And Partners for a Healthier Community is a private, not-for-profit organization. We have a relationship with Bay State. They're one of our funding partners. But our board of directors essentially tells me what to do.
Great. We do have the proposal that you, the write-up that you or distributed or somebody distributed. But maybe you could just do a real quick overview of what the proposal is, and then specifically what it is you were looking for from us.
Great. So let me give you a thumbnail. This is really a pretty timely conversation given the last couple of hours of conversation around how do you make a decision about what to require a operator to do, either in terms of entering the community and investing or entering the community and mitigating its effects. So this process and this proposal is one that's put out by Robert Wood Johnson in the Pew Center. We came across this and we're looking at the kind of policy projects, policy initiatives that were likely under consideration that would have an impact on the overall health. And so let me just read out loud for folks in the audience that may not know what a health impact assessment is. And I'm just going to give you the opening paragraph. It's a grant-making program entitled The Health Impact Project, Advancing Smarter Policies for Healthier Communities, a collaboration of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Pew Charitable Trust. And it encourages the use of health impacts assessments to help decision makers identify the potential health effects of proposed policies, projects, and programs, and make recommendations that enhance their health benefits and minimize their adverse effects on any associated costs. So in a sense, locating a casino in Western Mass in Hampden County has the potential for creating benefits and or having adverse effects on the health of the population. Now, this is particularly critical proposal for this county. If you follow the county health rankings put out by Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Wisconsin County Health Rankings Project, Hampden County ranks last in the state for health on health indicators. In other words, it's the county in the state with the worst health statistics. And so when you look at those statistics and you analyze health impact within Hampden County, at a local level, the health problems are even magnified. So if you look at health statistics in center city or core urban areas, it's 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 times that of the rest of the county, and then it's multiple times that of the state. And I'm speaking in a negative direction. So the health impact assessment is a systematic process that uses a combination of methods, tools, and data sources, including inputs from stakeholders to determine potential health effects of a proposed policy and plan. And so that's the crux of it. It really sets in place a baseline assessment of the health status of our population in this county, and in this particular case, in this region, and it says this is how healthy we are as a region before the casino. And it makes a judgment based on that data and on the science and the best science and evidence available to us from a research or epidemiological or statistical standpoint. Here are the likely impacts in the future. And it actually predicts, does some modeling, predicts the beneficial and the adverse effects. It gives us a baseline. And that baseline then informs the citizens who have to go and vote, informs the local government who has to make decisions, the commission that has to make decisions, as the kind of requirements, the kinds of investments that make sense, and the likely actions for mitigation that also make sense. The beauty of it is it sets a baseline, and so you have a way of not just informing and shaping the initial process, but looking after the fact to see if the predictions were accurate. And in fact, the investments were well-founded, and the mitigation recommendations derived from the assessment made sense. I liken it to, I was trying to think of a way of comparing this. If I map it to my lawn, so about 3 years ago, we started with this assessment of our lawn conditions, terrible, terrible conditions. So we made some judgments, and we made some predictions as to how to cure it, how to get our lawn green and lush. And so every year we look and we say, okay, we got that right, but we got that wrong. Let's do it. And so that baseline assessment of our lawn care gets upgraded every year, and we improve the health of our lawn by basically creating adjustments to our mitigation plan or adjustments to how we invest in fertilizing. So if you think of, and it's a weak analogy, but if you think of a health impact assessment of having that same value in this county or in this region, that we have really a baseline
Right.
on the overall health and well-being of citizens, and then we
Right. I think
assess it.
I think we understand that.
So
Yeah.
that's the ideal. The other piece of this that I think is particularly critical, it looks at health from a broad standpoint. If you think of social determinants of health, there are economic, social, biological conditions that create health. And so broadly defined, the health issues that we're looking at are those health issues influenced by our social situations, our economic conditions, et cetera. So it gives a really broad view of health, which is, again, pretty critical given the potential impact for a casino.
Right.
And then lastly, it brings into the conversation what hasn't probably happened here to the extent it needs to, diverse cross-section of stakeholders. What we propose is an application that would, to Robert Wood Johnson, that would create a diverse health casino partnership, would bring into the room multiple stakeholders from private sector, business sector, economic workforce, healthcare, and would look at the data, look at the projections, use that information basically not only to inform the larger decisions around location and mitigation, but we would use that information perhaps to inform their small P organizational policies as they prepare for a casino to be located in Western Mass. So that's the grant proposal process. We would apply to this grant-making organization. If we're successful in that grant, we'd receive it in January. Our timeline would we do a rapid review, and in 3 months we'd have some preliminary data, or preliminary assessment, basically paper review, and another 3 months out, 6 months out or so, a much more in-depth critical analysis. It's a small demonstration project. We think it makes sense, at least at a county level, with implications for the region. We think it's a template that could be used in subsequent years because it sets a baseline only. And it does set us up for ongoing deep discussions, not just informing current policy, but informing policy as it evolves or emerges. The Gaming Commission, and you know your rules as well as I do, or the requirements, I was really quite excited to see public health strategies as an element of what you're required to deliver on. And so a health impact assessment, in fact, gives you some of that grounding. It's a public health approach to looking at this
And what is it that you would be looking for from us?
Well, it would be great to have you as a full partner as part of the demonstration project looking at the health impact of this casino in this community.
And
Now,
a full partner would consist of what?
being available to, in a structured way or in an accountable way, to hear from us our results. So we become part of your agenda. Excuse me, part of your agenda or part of your structure, in a sense that we're going to provide information to you as a consequence of this assessment. We get your recognition, I guess, or your endorsement. Not much more than that, I suspect.
Okay. Let me just quickly bring you up to speed on where we are. We have a mandate in our legislation for a very comprehensive baseline assessment, first of all, about socioeconomic indicators of all types. even more broad. Yours are a very broad definition of health. Ours is even broader than that.
Yep.
But there's a lot of intersection. And then we are required to study that on a longitudinal basis
Yep.
over however many years
That's
gambling goes on here and watch what happens.
Yep.
So we are working very hard now on putting together that research agenda. And in fact, I'd been thinking about going to RWJ and Pew about the possibility of contributing funding, because even though we have money for this in our budget, this is this would be a statewide project. This would be a very expensive project. So I'm wondering is whether there's a fit here, or whether, is yours in response to a request for proposals, or is this just something you're going
No,
off
this
unsolicited?
is a direct response to a request for proposal.
So there's something
that
out
was
already?
issued. That's
Right.
correct. It was issued
Well-
by them with a response date of
Right.
the 28th for October.
Okay. The response is by the 28th? Is that what you said?
A brief proposal by the 28th, full proposal due to
Okay.
them in October.
What I was going to suggest, and I haven't talked about this with any of the commissioners, is maybe that we give the program officers at RWJ and Pew a call and tell them what we're doing and what we're thinking about, and see whether or not they see this as just two different projects. One should go ahead and we'll talk about our idea, or whether maybe they would want to consider just folding that project into our project and collaborating with us on it, and we would make your organization be an important part of that.
That would be exciting. Yeah.
And then if they're interested, then we go wherever it goes, and if they're not, then I'm sure we would be more than happy to sign on. My guess is we would be more than happy to sign on as a partner if it just turns out that you go ahead with that proposal. But I'd like to explore with Pew and Robert Wood Johnson, since we apparently have, now that we know the right people through
Yeah.
this proposal, to see what they think about our project.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
I would suspect they would be very excited. The county health rankings project comes out of Robert Wood Johnson, and they run that every year. They have connected that county health rankings project to a project they call Roadmaps to Health.
Right.
Now, we are a grantee. I am a grantee for their Roadmaps to Health initiative in this county. We were going to use that as additional leverage for them to see this is really a unique opportunity at a county level. I suspect looking at this at a statewide level is as exciting, if not more exciting for them. If they're willing to bite on that, then that would
Right.
trump what we're proposing. I'd be more than happy to step behind that proposal
Okay.
as well.
Well, if the commissioners?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Would you be willing to send us the contact names for the two for Pew and Robert Wood Johnson?
I will do
And
that, yeah.
We'll put in a call ASAP and get right back to you, and either become a partner in yours or talk about collaborating on a bigger project.
Great. And who should I send that to?
If you've got, it sounds like you've got Commissioner
Bruce?
Stebbins' email, but
That's fine.
anybody, just whoever's emails you have.
Great. Fantastic.
Okay.
This is bigger and better than I expected.
Well, we're very excited about this whole project. I mean, the research project. It's a
Well,
really, it's a
I mean,
big
my
opportunity.
closing comments, it goes to the theme that I was picking up, particularly how do you know whether what you've put in an RFP or what you've required by operators makes any
Right,
sense?
matters, right.
How do you deliver? And so you now have, at least from this standpoint, some hard data.
Right.
As hard as it can be. And it's not simply the typical assessment data that you put on the shelf like in a library, but this does predictive modeling. So you're actually predicting what's the likely impact, and you're going to adjust those predictions and that modeling year to year.
Right.
And it is a lifelong project. It's
Right.
going to impact generations, and it's so it's, again, I think you're right on target.
That's exactly the way we're thinking about it. And we're all very interested in getting as green a lawn as we can possibly get.
Great.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Great,
Robinson.
thank you.
Grass.
Thanks, Troy.
Thank you. All right, so if I can be directed to follow up on that, I will make some quick
Right.
phone calls. All right, now we are at item number 4, administration. Feels a little boring, given what we've been talking about to now, but
That's every case.
for starters, the executive director search update.
Sure. Just a quick update, as everybody knows, the posting closed on Friday the 7th. I'm still in the process of working with jury staff to schedule a couple of initial phone interviews, but I'm also working with Janice as we're beginning to schedule the in-person visits to Boston for several of these leading candidates, and probably we start that process the end of next week. So finalizing a agenda for their visit, working with them on travel accommodations, et cetera, but we're moving the process forward.
And remind me who they're seeing on this round? I think-
They will be, the agenda is, we've laid it out, and you'll be getting some ground rule instructions through Janice as to how we all
Okay.
act, so that we don't find ourselves in a position of running afoul of the open meeting law. Jen Stark from the AG's office has agreed to sit in with me and ask some questions, more pointed questions than we did over the phone. A meeting with Kathy O'Toole, our consultant or project manager for our consultants. The opportunity to meet with each one of you.
Right.
And again, that's where the ground rules
Right.
come into play. And also an opportunity to meet with members of our senior staff.
Right.
At this point, all three of them.
Great. And we are respecting people's privacy at this stage of the game.
Yes.
Right. Great. Commissioner Zuniga, you had talked about negotiating some kind of a side agreement with jury staff that if we ended up finding that one of their candidates for executive director ended up qualifying for something else, is that done? Or is that resolved?
It's, well, it's done in spirit, if you will, and, but not executed.
Okay.
In a contract. The proposal was half of the fee that was already competitive. It would be, but there's, I can speak to the general counsel in a minute if that's, because there's relevance there.
Okay.
But
All right, so, but they do know how they're operating, and we will turn that into an agreement sometime
Yes.
pretty soon. Okay,
Yes.
great. Additional hires, general counsel.
Well, this was going to be part of the finance update, but it might as well have it here. I've submitted a memorandum to approve the negotiations to
Okay.
Isaacson Miller to help with the outreach, screening, vetting, and in effect, mostly a search for the general counsel. As we have alluded to and talked about in the past, Commissioner McHugh would function as the hiring manager, if you will, so he would coordinate the process however he sees, could be done with Isaacson Miller. And I'm essentially serving as the procurement person here and negotiating with them. The fee proposal is customary with essentially what we're paying in other searches, and I find that to be acceptable.
Okay. So do we need to vote to adopt?
I would make a motion to vote on the, to enter into a contract with Isaacson Miller, as I have articulated in the recommendation, for the fee stipulated at $45,000.
I second.
Second? Any further discussion? Presumably you're in favor of this?
I am in favor of it, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think we've talked through this thought process. Commissioner Cameron has been bringing this up too on us. I think this is a nice balance and a way to get some support and to deepen the pool and so forth, so this is great. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, and motion passes unanimously. Staff attorney? Where, sorry, go ahead,
You want to go to that?
yeah.
Staff attorney?
Yep.
Okay, so we have, we're down to 5 finalists for the staff attorney. Commissioner Cameron and I are going to interview them. We've got 2 interviews scheduled for Wednesday, tomorrow. We had 3, but 1 withdrew. We've got 1 for next Monday, and the 5th, I'm not sure we've lined up, but we'll have the interviews finished by next week. And we will have a recommendation, if not at our next meeting, at the meeting, well, no, we have to go through the background
Background check,
investigation.
right.
And but we'll have somebody picked and going through that process, I hope by next week, with a prompt and successful completion of that process, and then hiring the person soon. And insofar as the Boston University Fellow Program is concerned, I've got to get on that and send them the job description that we discussed, that we looked at, and get them to send us some candidates as well. That's the one-year fellowship program.
Right.
So we'll get on that as well, and I would hope that we'd have that person by, both of those people, by the end of the month, I would hope.
Good. Excuse me one sec. And Commissioner Cameron, the Deputy Director for Investigations and Enforcement.
Yes, Mr. Chair. What I've recommended is that we also use a hybrid approach. We've been doing some local recruiting, talking to some folks who may be interested in the position, but to make sure that the pool is deep and really we have, great choices, it's my recommendation that we also engage jury staff. And that came by way of in identifying some of the candidates for executive director. Some of those folks had a law enforcement background that may be interested in this position. So we just want to make sure we're reaching out in a way that makes sense, so we have a nice pool. We'd like to move this along quickly. I'll be working with Commissioner Zuniga to put that together, and we have a job description written, so it's just a question of getting it out there now in a way that makes sense, and
All right, so-
interviewing candidates.
So you're already underway on working on that idea,
Right,
right?
right. I can reach out to jury staff and essentially elicit a proposal with the details for this new search.
Is there any reason, Commissioner, why we couldn't go ahead and post the job description? We can always switch who you send the names to, but I think we're all anxious to get rolling.
We
So,
are.
We're done with the job description, right?
Oh, we are,
So
correct.
why don't we post that ASAP?
We could certainly
Start the-
start do
start the
that,
time running.
just direct it to our office,
Right.
Janice, or
Okay.
and then or Commissioner Cameron, really.
Well, we have to be a little careful now about the recommendations, the letters of recommendation and the like, so we need to, it'd be better if we did not have those, it'd be better if we directed it to somebody who could filter out the letters of recommendation, which can't be reviewed until we have finalists, so somehow, whatever the mechanism is, but we gotta take account of
If
that.
we can do this quickly with jury staff, which I believe we can,
Yep.
and
But
hopefully
it's
we'll
gonna
be
take-
able to.
But next week, it'll take us a week to approve the contract. We have to be next Tuesday.
Well, I think if we were, like we've done in the past in posting the job description and just saying submit a resume to Janice, is that?
We can just say no
No, for
no
Janice,
reference.
I mean,
letters.
no references.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
No
and
references.
that's how we've done it in the past.
Oh,
We haven't asked
submit-
for
right.
references
Okay.
originally.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well then we'll move in that direction.
Okay.
then.
So Janice or Eileen or somebody. Okay,
Janice,
great. Well, it's exciting. I think it's anxious to get those. Report from the Director of Administration, combined with maybe with the project management update. Do you have some things for us? Okay. Our Director of Administration, Eileen Glovsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make this as brief as possible. I know that we had anticipated having a copy of the master schedule to present, but the decision was made to defer that until my next presentation to you. We just hadn't had enough opportunity to review it. In addition, late yesterday, we received a strategic plan from our gaming consultants, and I would really like the opportunity to go through that plan with a fine-tooth comb and sort of tick and tie the things that we have on the master schedule. I think it would be most appropriate for us to do that before we present that. Currently, Commissioner Zuniga and I will be working on the next phase of the contract with the consultants and hope to get that done as quickly as possible. We have some additional documentation we received today that we'll be reviewing.
So we've received a proposal from the consultants for Phase 2?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, good.
I did want to remind the commissioners that the deadline for submitting information to me about any potential externs that you would like to have from MIT during their January independent activity period is this, interestingly, it's Saturday, but I would appreciate having any sort of request that you might have by Friday. And we'll put something together and see if we can get some interest from the students there to assist us with a few small projects. I know that a few have been mentioned by some of the commissioners. It's certainly not critical, we don't have to do it, but it would be great if we could take that opportunity. And last but not least, we have completed the procurement for brand identity and web development, and I know that Commissioner Zuniga will be reviewing that during his presentation on the budget update.
Just for the audience, Ms. Driscoll was referring to a project management chart. Jeez, I don't know why I do this. For the entire process up to and through the granting of licenses that we've talked about, and that will have every step of the way between now and whatever number of months out that is. And as soon as we feel like that's pretty solid, we want to post that so everybody can see exactly what we're doing and what the critical path items are on that chart, all as by way of saying, as the folks from Springfield discussed, to give us the tools to manage this as tightly and quickly as we possibly can. So that's great. That'll be,
Right.
and we did get it. I mean, none of us has had a chance to look at it yet, but it was great to get
Right.
it. Anything else for Ms. Glovsky? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Number 5, Finance Budget, Commissioner Zuniga.
Yes, I've submitted a memorandum that describes the process for the selection of Jack Rabbit Designs, who is one of the respondents to our RFR for brand identity and website development. I've described the process in this memorandum. Based on what I understand, I was not a participant to the procurement management team, but Brandon Milby and Director Driscoll were, assisted by Director Glovsky, and in terms of the procedures. The purpose of this procurement was, again, to have recommendations relative to services on brand identity, logo creation, look, feel, especially with a focus on social media. And the team seems to be very excited about the proposal, seems to be the most competitive, and it's a good combination of cost-effective and creative.
Great.
Can take any questions, or?
I just noticed on the second page, where it says Phase 3 review,
Yes.
the second sentence says until the technical proposal. I think that means after the technical proposal was completed.
Yes, you're correct.
First word of the second sentence. Anybody else have comments on this process? And we know that Director Driscoll is excited about this, right? And wants this to happen.
Way
Oh,
over there.
okay. So,
I'm
do
excited, right?
you want to move?
Yes, so I make a motion that the Gaming Commission accept the proposal submitted by Jack Rabbit Designs and pursue contractual negotiations and detailed scoping for the services described in the responses to the RFR 2012 dated August 22 of 2012.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 5B is a reference to the issue of how we handle the personnel of the commission. Commissioner Zuniga and I were directed, I think at our last meeting or recently, to talk with HRD, the Human Resources Department of the Commonwealth, to understand what our rights, obligations, responsibilities, options are, et cetera, relative to having bargaining units or not amongst our employees. We did meet with Paul Dietl, who's the head of HRD, and 2 or 3 people from his office. They explained to us that we are presumed to be under 150E, which is the section that does put us under a collective bargaining umbrella. umbrella. There are a number of ways that this could be brought about. There are a bunch of pre-existing unions we could just opt into. Our employees could be what they call accreted into those units. We could organize either we or we could be a part of, or unions could organize our employees into new units, and there's a process of votes and cards that we don't really need to get into at this point. We have a fair amount of flexibility on how this is handled. We also talked about the Racing Commission employees who at the end of this year will no longer be Department of Public Licensure employees, and we have to make some decisions about them. But what we decided amongst us was that Commissioner Zuniga and Director Glovsky should search around in the industry to some of our peers and try to understand what the best practices are. Do they have union shops? Are there specialized constraints? What kinds of at-will rights do we have? Do they have, et cetera? And that they would come back to us and say, we've looked around, here's what we think here's what we really need to do in terms of our employee relationships. And then we would discuss that amongst ourselves and make a decision to go forward. We only have, at this point, I think, 2 employees that would come under a collective bargaining option, probably. So it'll be a while, I think, before there's enough critical mass for the unions to be interested. In the meantime, we will be communicating with them, telling them what we're doing with the existing unions for the state racing division folks, and making sure that we're collaborating and coordinating with the unions on our process as we try to figure out what the right way is for us to proceed. Does that sound right to you?
Yep, that's a great summary. I stress the point that Director Diddle did mention that there's not a big rush. The critical mass of the employees will really dictate a lot of the timeline, but by doing this investigation, it's very timely.
Right. Okay, so you'll come back to us sometime in the next few weeks with an assessment or a proposal for how we really ought to handle this?
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that topic?
And of course, I missed that meeting because I didn't pay attention to my schedule. But that proposal, we'll talk about whether this is a top-down or a bottom-up process, right?
Probably, yes.
Meaning, should we take the lead, or do we
Yeah,
let
I
the
mean,
unions do their own?
Yeah, I mean, what's,
Yeah.
my naive assumption is that it's a bottom-up process, but maybe that's not the best practice. I'd be interested in that piece as well as other details.
Yeah, that's an important point.
And
I
not
guess,
now, I mean, that's.
yes,
but-
no, I guess the research would have to be some retrospective as to
Yeah.
how, let's say, other commissions or states may
Right.
have
Right.
evolved, not
Right.
necessarily where they are.
Right.
But this also, I think, this is a union state where I think everybody all the policymakers in the Commonwealth are predisposed towards having appropriate union relationships, and we want to work with them. As much as possible.
I'm not disagreeing at all.
Yeah.
Just who gets the ball rolling, because, imposing a union on people is not necessarily what
That
unions are all
that
about.
was
So,
not the
right.
recommendation by
Okay.
the folks. It was
Right.
actually the opposite.
Right.
So,
What was?
well, the idea that would come from the employees, not from the commission.
Okay, but that'll be part of your research project.
Yep.
Item 6, Racing Division, Commissioner Cameron.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Brief report today. With regard to operations, I'm in the process of scheduling hearings. Each racetrack must submit an application each year outlining their operations, and we are scheduling hearings on those applications, one in Plainville, one in Boston, for October. I will be representing the commission at those hearings, if there are any comments from the public on the application process. With regard to a director of racing, we are in the process. We are conducting interviews, moving that process as quickly as possible which includes a background check, so that when all of those things are completed, we'll be ready to make recommendation to the full commission. And the third item on the agenda to discuss is, well, let me stop. With regard to operations, there is we have one matter before the commission, and that is part of your package, and that is a letter from Mr. Pocaro, who is the attorney for Mr. Case. And we partially took up this matter 2 weeks ago, and we spoke about the fact that we would give Mr. Pocaro, on behalf of Mr. Case, additional time to object to the tentative decision. He was advised of that. He was also advised that we would be talking about this matter today. And if you look at your letter, it will speak to the fact that his client has asked him to write to the commission. And just to refresh your memories about this case, this was a request for a license, which was denied by the judges. An objection was filed, which I heard on behalf of the commission, and I upheld in a tentative decision the judge's decision that this individual was detrimental to racing and should not be licensed in Massachusetts at this time. We then received a letter from Mr. Pocaro, again, an attorney out of New Jersey, requesting that we withdraw the whole application so that the hearing was never held, and that we could remove the finding from the U.S. Trotting Association website. It's my recommendation that we do not proceed in that manner. There was an objection filed. We did conduct a hearing. Everyone had an equal opportunity to present the evidence in the matter, and a tentative decision was rendered. And it's my recommendation that we do not entertain this settlement letter on behalf of Mr. Case. We did give Mr. Pocaro until the middle of September to file with the commission if he had an objection. He has sent a second letter, which is also part of your file, which says that they do not intend on filing any objections to the tentative decision, but he did want the commission to respond to his letter requesting that the entire matter be withdrawn. I believe that this is an issue that we should vote as a commission, and it is my recommendation, again, that we do not, the objection occurred, the hearing was held, and I do not recommend that we allow the appellant to withdraw the entire matter.
When you say the objection was heard, you mean his application to
Well,
race, wasn't it? Or-
The license was
Oh,
denied by the
I'm sorry,
judges,
that's right, you're right, I got
which
it,
then,
right, got it.
which then, the next course of action
Right.
would be to come before the commission. I did hold a hearing in this matter
That's right.
representing the commission, and,
If I could just, the term objection, it's just so the record is clear. I mean, that's exactly what happened, but it was basically an appeal from the denial of the licensure that Commissioner Cameron heard, and then he has the right to appeal from her decision to us, and he wants to withdraw the entire appeal. That's
correct.
basically-
That's
Yeah.
well said, Commissioner.
Well, no, it's just,
No,
that's exactly what you said.
Well said, Judge.
It's just what you said.
Your Honor. Okay, so was there any, does anybody object? Do other of our people, the stewards, the people that you're working with, does anybody support his application to withdraw? Was there a difference of
I
opinion?
did speak to the staff attorney on this matter, and certainly let him know that I was not of the opinion that we should entertain this matter. He agreed, but certainly it is the commission's responsibility to respond to this matter.
Right, I just wondered whether at the staff level there was disagreement with where you've come
Well,
down.
this is really a decision for the commission to make.
Correct.
It's not a decision for the staff to make at this point.
No,
It's
but
beyond-
I understand, I just.
And
but
in
we
terms of the record, it's important that it's done on the record that's before us, not for staff discussions.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, again, we did notify him that we were taking this matter up today. So they're aware that we will be discussing this matter and making a decision whether or not to entertain this request to withdraw the entire application.
So he's requesting to withdraw the entire application, not just the appeal.
The entire appeal. This whole thing is an appeal.
He's on the, okay.
Yes.
The whole thing from the get-go is an appeal. The
Okay.
stewards made the decision, no license.
Okay.
He appeals, first stage appeal, Commissioner Cameron, second stage appeal, us. He wants the whole appeal withdrawn and is content to live with
The
the
decision.
denial
Steward's
by the
decision.
stewards.
Okay.
Right.
By the stewards.
That's
Got
his
it.
pitch.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, if we read from his language, withdraw the application and request that the denial published on the United States Trotting Association website for the ruling be withdrawn.
Right.
So he's asking,
It's even a step further, it sounds like.
Well, he wants to go all the way back to the
The
beginning,
application, right.
to the appeal, and say, we've gone forward with this, I want to take a big eraser, I withdraw my appeal, I want the whole process that existed after I filed the appeal to be erased. That's basically what it is.
correct.
And the commissioner, recommendation is that we deny that request.
No, because all of those things occurred.
Correct.
The appeal
Yep.
was made, resources were expended on behalf of the commission to bring witnesses and hold the hearing, and
Is there any precedence for this type of action being taken before in any other case?
I'm not aware of, well, there have been withdrawals of applications. It's similar to what we're discussing with gaming. Is there a point where we allow a withdrawal? Is there a point where we don't want to allow?
Right.
So there are instances where withdrawals have occurred with applications. I'm not aware of anything that's gone to the point of a hearing, of a decision being
Right.
made on behalf of the commission, and then we act like it did not happen, to use my
I don't know whether
words.
this is relevant or not, but it does say, and he does, he's talking
Making that
about
all go away.
pointing out pretending like he hasn't applied. And he's talking about redoing the judge's decision. Judge's decision remains. So he's talking about going way back.
Talking about her decision.
Oh, I thought it was the original. Okay.
No, he's not trying to wipe out the steward's decision, but
Okay.
this is what was published in the United States Trotting
The
Association.
appeal. Okay. Okay. All right. Is there any more discussion? My inclination is to go along with Commissioner Cameron's recommendation on this. I don't see any reason not to. Is there any further
I would
discussion?
agree with that notion. I don't see why this should be revoked.
Okay.
The basic thrust of this, if we permit this, is without, unless there's extraordinary circumstances, is to allow a person to file an appeal from a steward's ruling, see what the decision is, and then after the decision comes in, decide whether or not they want to proceed with the appeal in the first place. It is a resource consumer because it's going to encourage people to do that with the knowledge that they can just erase everything if it doesn't come out the way they want. And second, it plays off the process in a way that doesn't lend dignity to the process. These are serious matters done in a serious way by the commissioner with a significant investment of time, and it ought to be treated seriously. These things have consequences, and you can't just go through this kind of a process and then say, gee, I wish I hadn't gone down this path. So I think it elevates the process to deny this and also prevents.
I just want to, the point that this guy is making is that when the judges at Plain Ridge decided not to license Mr. Case, that he was unavailable, he couldn't be reached. And he was told later on by the judges at Plain Ridge that if he'd been able to call the week before, his application could have been withdrawn and the denial would not have been made public. So,
That's part of the merits of what was before Commissioner Cameron. So
but this means that if the guy's lawyer hadn't been on vacation, he would have been able to withdraw this?
There was no evidence in front of Commissioner
No
Cameron
evidence
about
to
any
that
of
at all.
this?
They filed the objection, we
Oh.
scheduled the hearing,
appeal.
we held the
Okay.
hearing.
Okay.
This didn't come,
This is-
in her decision, that there was no mention of this in her
Okay.
decision? There's no evidence about that? This is
Correct.
secondhand hearsay at this level, never raised below?
Okay, fine, I didn't understand that.
Commissioner McHugh, do you ever see a similar process in any other legal proceedings like this?
Not at this stage, not after the decision. It's never done. There's a procedure for withdrawing a complaint after a complaint is filed in a civil action, but even that is not automatic, because there are consequences to filing a complaint. And so, this is, it's never done in the judicial realm,
Okay.
in this fashion.
Any
And
further?
I'm unaware, frankly, of it being done I've never seen one done at the administrative level, but probably I wouldn't, because I was in an environment where I took the appeal from the administrative thing. So.
Any other discussion? You want to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we deny the request by Mr. Procaro on behalf of Mr. Case, that this entire matter be withdrawn.
Second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously.
Can I come back before we finish 5A just briefly to the application that by Plain Ridge and Suffolk for next year is an application in which they do what, Commissioner? They lay out their plans
They do.
and then do we ultimately
Correct. That
have
will
to
be-
vote on that, or do you?
This is the racing you're talking about, not
The racing.
not
The
casinos.
application itself, that will be, we hold hearings.
Right.
And if there's any public comment, this is an area in which we will be looking as part of the working group to see if there are changes that need to be made to that application. But at this point, because it's a timely application that has to be
Right.
completed within a few weeks.
Right.
We changed some basic names to the Gaming Commission as opposed to Racing. And we are moving forward with the same application at this time.
Okay, then does that come before the commission for
You
ultimate
know,
approval?
I'll be honest with you, I'll have to check on the process. I was just made aware that,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
I
I know
asked,
this is a fast
I
moving-
asked basic questions
Right.
about, okay, where do we have the hearings, what's been done in the past?
Right.
You know, those kinds of things. But I will ask for the prior process and see if that's something we want to
Okay.
use again this year.
Okay,
So this is an application by the existing racetracks to have
Correct.
racing again next
Correct.
year? Okay.
Yes.
We certainly might think about, well, what you said, the reform stuff that we're doing, all the stuff that our consultant recommended.
It's all for next year's.
Right, so, all right, so it's not operational here. We might think about at least using some of our transparency initiatives to open those meetings up. You know,
Well, no,
we
they're
might-
open public hearings
Right,
that I
we-
am
we might-
scheduling at this
right,
time.
But we might promote them a little more widely and maybe run them on the
could-
web,
we
maybe
could-
we'll think about that.
Okay, we could do that. I will be prepared next week to have some more detail as to the
Okay.
process for the commission.
Okay. I had, you want to say something? Two questions. The pari-mutual and simulcast report that is due in
Yes.
January, where's that in the process and
We
pipeline?
have, I received a proposal from a former counsel to Consumer Affairs, who's very interested in assisting the commission with this process. We've asked for a little more work to be done with the proposal, and he will be in our office, this individual, next week, and until we see the proposal, we vote on the proposal, I hope we can have that done within 2 weeks, to have that process ready to be laid out to the full commission
To
for.
have found somebody to do it, is that what you're talking about?
Well, we have an individual who we think is very capable of doing it, has put forth a proposal on how to do that. So we're working on some numbers, so we weren't ready to present that today, frankly.
Okay.
Frankly, we had too large an agenda. But we're very aware of the deadlines, and we will have the week after next, we should have this entire matter settled and
But by settled, you mean get the person to work doing the
Correct.
report, right? Okay.
Correct, yes.
And you'll coordinate with Commissioner Zuniga about how
Yes.
we procure this vote?
Yes.
It's okay. Or, sorry, Director Glovsky. And you also had an executive assistant and a paralegal in the pipeline? Where are those?
the executive assistant, we are prepared to conduct a couple of interviews. I will be doing that with Commissioner Stebbins. This is a very short week. We're out of the office, so I believe we have that scheduled for next week. So we're moving that process along. I did have an interview with a young woman with a racing background who came into the office. We're going to move forward on trying to hire her also. I've spoken to Director Glovsky about this matter, and we're moving that process along also.
So you're not
Very
looking-
positive meeting with
You're
this
not looking
individual.
for other candidates for that job, or are you?
No, it really is, with her unique skill sets, and it's a paralegal position. I think that at this point where I'm confident that she has the unique skill sets to, with working with the New York Board of Racing, that she can help us, and we have some deadlines we have to meet here.
Okay, so again, you can just coordinate on the process.
Yes.
Okay, great. On we did get the key legal document apparently from the EPA.
Yes.
Oh, were you gonna speak to
Yeah,
that?
I was. Next on the agenda, I received a pretty detailed package, including all of the documents, all of the issues that have transpired with Suffolk Down, and they have entered into a consent decree. Commissioner McHugh was good enough to assist me with this legal matter as far as taking a very lengthy document, and as you can see, this has been pared down to just the key issues to give us a briefing. If any of the commissioners would like to see the entire package, I'd be happy to show it to you. But just to quickly summarize what is happening here, this is a consent decree entered into with EPA and Suffolk Downs. Some of the items that have transpired. They've agreed to pay some significant penalties for some waste violations, some runoff issues that came to light several years ago. 2008, I believe, was the first year. They have been working under a temporary pollution prevention measure. All of those measures now are becoming permanent with this consent decree. Fines will be paid. Compliance requirements are in place to include production area, roof runoff separation, process waste management plan. It's pretty detailed.
Thank
but
you.
the
Would you mind telling us more about the
Yeah.
wastewater runoff?
Yeah, I know, but the important piece here is that there are significant monitoring in place here. The EPA have put in some really strict monitoring compliance measures. So they will be out on a monthly basis to test and make sure that the plans are being followed. So I think we can be confident that I think it'll come to our attention if there is a problem. But like I say, I'm after looking at this, the plan is comprehensive, and the appropriate monitoring is in place. Yes.
Okay, and I haven't had a chance to look at that yet, but I'm interested to see it. And we got a letter from William Geary, who is a lawyer and former public official, who has some experience in this area, asking if we would like his help in monitoring. At this point, it doesn't look like we need any help in monitoring, but in any event, we can postpone that until we decide whether or not we do, or if we do. Just for the record, he did point out that he was a part of the Shefsky and Freilich team who proposed here. He was the local lawyer who was part of that team, and he wanted to make sure we knew about that. And if we do end up talking about him, he wants us to know about it, and should there be any, we should think about whether there's any issue there. That's just an FYI. But for the moment, we'll just postpone this, and till we see whether there's any
I,
other need.
after looking at the compliance requirements here and the monitoring measures, I don't believe there's a need at this point to hire someone to take an additional look at that.
Okay,
Everybody can take a look for themselves at the report, Mr. Chairman, but these people have more monitors than they've got horses.
Yeah.
So
all right, got it. Okay, great, thank you. Anything else on racing?
No, that completes my report.
Great. Project work plan, consultant status report, review of consultant schedule and scope, strategic plan draft. I think we pretty much covered that when Director Glovsky talked about. We do have the 421-page draft of the strategic plan. We are getting the essential pieces of that copied. And we do have a schedule for going over it. I think we have a phone call tomorrow, right, where they're gonna sort of talk us through the gist. We won't be doing any deliberating, but we'll just be hearing their report to us. And then I think in 2 weeks, we will probably have a pretty major meeting where we'll be talking about the schedule, the strategic plan, how it all fits together, how do we like it, and so forth. Does that sound right? In two weeks from today? Okay. Is there anything else about the consultant? Item A. Item B, the September 10 hearing. I guess we just need to make sure, well, that you remind us of the process of taking our written and oral comments and processing them.
we're beginning that process now, Mr. Chairman. The first step is for all the comments to be distributed to all of us. I'll do that tomorrow. There were 11, well, quickly this morning, I sent all of them to Anderson and Krieger, which is going to take the first step, and I'll circulate them tomorrow. I sent 11 sets over, but they were hugely redundant, so I think there were about 8 comments. So I'll circulate those tomorrow. Anderson and Krieger will have them. They will assemble them in a way that groups similar comments or comments on the same subject together and attaches them to the portions of the regulations to which they're directed. Some are global and they don't have a specific portion, but so they'll formulate them. They'll send them to the gaming consultants. The gaming consultants and Anderson and Krieger will look at them and make a recommendation. The results of that will be circulated to us early next week, and we'll have them all by Friday, no later than Friday. The comments, you'll have the raw material tomorrow, and then we will have everybody's comments by no later than next Friday, and then at our meeting on the 25th, which is the following Tuesday, 2 weeks from today, we can decide whether we need to make any changes or not. There'll be recommendations that we should make changes or not make changes. From what I've seen, there are no huge changes that are recommended. These are tweaking things, these are matters of detail by and large. And so I think we can easily meet our target of having all of this in a final form to the Secretary of State by 2 weeks from this Friday, which will allow us to release the RFA 1 application form on schedule mid-October.
Great.
So that's the schedule.
So that would be the Friday after the week, the day we talk about it, the Tuesday meeting. we talk
Friday
about
after
it,
the day
right?
we talk about it, on Friday after the day we talk about it, we have to send the completed document to the Secretary of State.
Right.
It's published then 2 weeks later. The day that it's published, it's final. And then
Your RFA
the
goes out.
following week, which will be mid-October, October 12th, 13th, we can release the document.
Great.
Simultaneously, we have our forms up on the web for comment. We'll get whatever comments we get with respect to the forms, but that's not governed by the same process. That's an entirely voluntary
Right.
process.
Right.
So we'll keep track of that. We'll brief everybody on that, the comment. Everybody will get the comments we get on that as well.
Great. Terrific. All right, so we are on critical path schedule, which is great.
Right.
Terrific.
Right.
Item number 8, public education and information. We had, I've lost track of the Palmer Water and Sewer inquiry. Is that,
Palmer Water and Sewer Inquiry is one of the things that I've got to get back to.
Okay.
As well as the Chelsea
Right, okay.
things that we met with Mr. Ash and got some clarifications on the questions. We've got to get back to the commission, which I hope to do next Tuesday. Commissioner Stebbins and I prepare something and give it to the commission. And then that becomes part of the frequently asked questions response. But that's in the works.
Great.
Oh, we did hear from the DPU with respect, I did inquire at Commissioner Zuniga's request to the DPU with respect to the Palmer issue, and the commissioner, the chair of the DPU, wrote back with a thoughtful letter saying that they really don't have a position to take on that inquiry. So I'll circulate that as well. I just got that the other day.
On the acting ombudsman report, we have a couple of things. We did get an inquiry, it was pursuant to our hearings on yesterday, which is not really the right format, the right venue for them, but from the Citizens Committee in Palmer, saying that they had basically negotiated the host community agreement, and what should they be doing next. And I haven't spoken to their representative about it yet, but basically it's the same issues as we've been talking about with Springfield, and I think I would be saying that it is desirable not to execute that until we have issued what we think should be in the agreement, A, and B, and not to have the referendum until we have determined whether or not, if we have an applicant, whether or not they are qualified. So I think that's consistent, but I just want to make sure that I'm saying it right to you all. Does that sound right?
I would agree.
I would agree with
I
that.
agree. I think, I may be mistaken, but I think they said that they'll have it finished, have it negotiated by December.
Oh,
I
Oh, I
thought.
misunderstood that.
I think they said that, and then asked what the next step is. Maybe I'm wrong,
okay,
but I'm not sure that they've executed it yet.
okay. No, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to have executed it. I thought,
Right.
whatever. But either way, our points are still the same. And
Right.
it is true that a number of communities are pretty far down the road, and there is this disconnect. As I said, it's not just Springfield where this issue occurs, but I do think it's important for us to give pretty strong advice that those 2 points are important.
Yeah, December was the timeline.
I'm sorry?
December was their timeline.
Okay.
Do we have any intelligence as to whether in that particular community there's been surrounding communities negotiations?
I don't
Um,
know anything about it.
I don't disagree with this advice, but I do think that, and perhaps we do this as part of the strategic plan discussion that we're going to have in a couple of weeks, that we do need to have a discussion about timelines, advice, the issues that are on the table now, and what to say to people to give them advice. I think, to get to Commissioner Stebbins' point, the certainty that people planning economic decisions have to have would be enhanced by at least knowing something definitive. And I think there's definitive things that we can say that'll come out of this strategic plan discussion and the like, and that we've got to get that up on the web and out through the ombudsman to the communities and
Right.
say whatever we can say and keep updating it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure we've said a lot of this stuff. You know, we've said.
No, we haven't.
Well, we have. We've said we had that guidance for communities and set out our plan and all this stuff and said, indeed, you can go ahead and do the host community agreement, but you're going to risk the problems we talked about today. But I'm not sure people have seen that, and I think we need to do a better job of getting it out, which
Right.
is one of the ombudsman's functions.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's actually be helpful to have the ombudsman to do this, but I think you're right, that we probably need, we haven't even formally said how long people are gonna
Right.
have to fill in their RFA
Right,
ones,
right,
so there's gonna be,
right.
there are a number of data points,
Right.
critical path points that we
Right.
need to describe, I agree
Right.
with that. Okay. Also, in your packet is a letter from, or an email, I guess, from Troy Siebels, the chair of the Mass Performing Arts Center Coalition. He and a couple of other people came to see us. I forget, I think they talked to Commissioner Stebbins and me, to talk about the fact that they didn't feel the legislation they thought was great and gives them a place to be protected against competing entertainment venues in casinos, but that how that gets implemented is pretty complicated, and they wanted to talk to us. We said it's really premature. They have now come back to us and said, is now a time that we could come and talk to your commission? And the question I wanted to ask is, are we ready to start opening up? There are others, there's some people in the construction trades that want to come talk to us. Are we ready to open up our public meetings for some portion of it and entertain people who want to come in and give us advice on things that will pertain to RFA 2?
I think it's timely, as we're laying out a schedule, laying out a process, which we don't have all the answers to. I think we could benefit from hearing from these groups sooner rather than later and be able to figure that into our strategic planning process. We may decide after hearing from a body that might be a little bit premature, but too many questions about our own calendar, I think it's tough to say whether somebody's timeliness is appropriate or not.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. I think we ought to start, but I would really like to begin to have some kind of a framework into which to fit these discussions. As a practical matter, I don't think we can get any of these people in before the next couple of weeks. And then, hopefully, we'll have this big framework. Because I think it's important to not only to try to keep track of these things, which we can do, but also to give them some, and ourselves, some understanding of when we're going to be able to take up these issues, or that we're going to defer them until such and such a time, because it goes with this piece. And that kind of thing, I think, is reassuring both to us and to them.
I think that's a good point. And actually, entertaining public comment like this kind of public comment is something that ought to be on our Gantt chart.
Right. Right.
And maybe it starts pretty soon, and maybe it doesn't start for a little while. So I think that's a good point. So why don't we say to them that at least the next couple of weeks is premature, but as we hone in on our scheduling tool and schedule, that probably within the next month or so would be the time to start that. Okay?
I agree.
He got in touch with you, right, Commissioner Stebbins? Or
Who did?
Did he get in touch with me? Oh, he got in touch with Janice, okay. So maybe Janice can get back to them, wherever she is. Okay, and the Ombudsman search update, Commissioner Stebbins.
Again, a quick recap. We had well over 40 resumes. We boiled that down to a pool of finalists to interview in person. We've narrowed that group down to a group of 4 finalists, and you are meeting with all of them tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yep.
Wow, okay. And you've got a package of information that I'm
We'll
gonna.
be getting that to you first thing in the morning. Jamie has all the resumes. I'm sending along kind of the first round interview sheets that we did with the finalists.
Okay. If we are going to follow up with Springfield, and I do think there is reasons, jumps ahead a little bit here, but I do think there is reason for us to talk with them to try to clarify a little more. I don't understand exactly what their rush is, and I would just need to sit and talk through it. I may need someone else to do that, because we're going to be off-site Thursday and Friday. So we need to talk about who's going to follow up on that if I've got the day pretty well filled. But we'll come back to that in a sec. Okay, so I guess we are jumping to the Diversity and Inclusion Forum, which is scheduled for the 19th. Is Brandon here? Yeah. Do you know how many signups we have? 160. 160? Yes. Yikes. Wow. Okay.
What
great.
time does it start?
And it's a diverse group.
8:30.
8:30 in the morning?
8:30 in the morning on the 19th? Is that what you said? Yes. Okay. Surprise to me.
big pot of coffee.
If the brains are all working
Right.
correctly at this.
Okay, well, that's great. That'll be a really interesting, and we got a very interesting letter from the person who's organizing this, Ron Marlowe, from the Governor's Office of whatever it's called, Access and Opportunity.
Supplier Diversity Office.
So, no, something like that, but about commenting on our regs too, which was an interesting letter. The last thing on this item 8 is the proposal from AIA, which you have in your packets. The Association, I don't know what it stands for,
Of architects, American Institute of Architects.
American Institute of Architects.
And Boston Society
In
of Architects.
collaboration with the Boston Society of Architects. Basically, what they are saying is, would you value having some kind of a conversation with us, perhaps another educational forum, talking about the issues of aesthetics, environment, its sustainability, and so forth, that they might be able to put together. And as I said in my note to you, I think it's a great idea, and I've actually been trying to think of a way to get some of the thinking and creativity from these kinds of folks to help us out. So if everybody agrees, I will go ahead and talk to them and see if we can have them take responsibility for doing an education forum as we have done the others.
I was excited to get this letter. I've had a couple conversations with the folks at the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, which are also helpful in working with building occupants in terms of energy efficiency. And as we all know, in one of the clauses under Section 18, our evaluation criteria, which this piece doesn't get mentioned all that often, is the need for a building to try to accomplish LEED certification with the construction of the building, as well as a general provision we know is in the statute that, you know, any casino facility kind of blends in with the regional surroundings as opposed to spotting a big golden pyramid as we drive down the highway. I think some discussion around these topics would be warranted, as well as, you know, again, we've talked at other meetings about outside experts that can help us evaluate license applications, whether it's regional planning agencies or what have you. But you know, under Section 18, again, you know, realizing maximum capital investment of land and infrastructure, you know, is one of the criteria in our license evaluation. Maybe AIA is a great resource to help us with that type of assessment as we get to that review of final license applications. But you know, kind of generating the discussion. I think this also comes back to the opportunity that Eileen raised about, you know, an MIT student being involved in this. I mean, architecture, I didn't get into MIT, nor did I apply, but I understand they have some type of program related to architecture and construction. But, you know, kind of pulling all these entities together, and AIA may be able to find some other sources we haven't been thinking about.
Yeah.
I
Any other thoughts?
I would agree. I think it'd be helpful, as I believe they offered, for them to come before one of the commission's meetings and then just brainstorm a little bit, if they're willing to do this, as to what they're thinking about. I think the question about design criteria is in addition.
About the what?
Design criteria.
Right.
Whether this commission could impose or should impose certain elements of design on casinos that are in addition or outside of the sustainability concepts, but rather on what we'd like to see. I think it's very important to start considering sooner.
In the past, either one or two of us have worked with designees who are going to do these for us, or in one case, she did it all by herself. But would you rather, and would others rather have them come in and talk with the whole group rather than meeting, say, with you and me?
It was just an idea as to in addition to, yes, we could meet with them and then brainstorm that way. I guess I was thinking that we might not need to wait until the next public educational forum, because that does take time to put together and you
But
know.
we don't have any real need for, there's no rush. I mean, there will be soon, but even if it took a month to pull it together, that's
I-
plenty of time before we start thinking about it.
I kind of like this idea of maybe coming before us as a group and even suggest to kind of give them a clear and concise talking points or discussion points. Maybe kind of pick out from this statute where we think they might have some expertise and input, and then just say, come before us. We'll see if we need to expound on it as part of a forum, but say, we have concerns about, these 5 provisions in the statute. Give us your thoughts on them. And keep the conversation pretty directed, and we know where we want feedback, and kind of give them that upfront information. Say, come in and talk to us about the lead certification piece, some of the different provisions in the statute that reflect where they might have expertise to offer us.
You're talking about instead of a forum.
Instead of,
instead of a
in advance of a forum, something we might be able to do even a little bit quicker. But, I think this topic is interesting. I think the broader public is actually more interested in what these buildings are going to look like when whatever community they go into. So it might broaden having a conversation with the general public. But I'm interested in hearing from them first on some of the key provisions in the statute where they might be helpful to us.
I think that's a great idea. I am too. I'm very interested in this, and I mean, I don't think we can go around and dictate what size windows are in casinos, but we do have a bunch of provisions, and how we blend the local design criteria with our requirements, and how we approach the idea of LEED certification and what kinds of things. I think it'd be a great topic for all of us to participate in.
So
I'm just
rather
not-
than a forum.
Well, no, I don't think there's mutually exclusive.
So just start with this one.
Start
Okay.
with
All right,
this,
so
and
we'll
then-
get them to come in quickly and try to brainstorm up
I-
on.
Sure.
Go
I
ahead.
think the other thing we have to incorporate into this is best safety measures, with
Yeah,
regard to.
there's another one. That's
Absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
that really is important when you're
Right.
building casino,
Right.
to set it up in a manner that allows for easy evacuation, all the camera, all the things that we need to do.
Right.
So I think
Okay.
that would be interesting to learn about as well as all of these issues.
Right.
Okay, so we'll have them come in as quickly as possible to kind of.
I'd be happy to work on kind of pulling out the statutes and sharing that back with them
Okay.
if that's
Well,
appropriate.
would you follow up with them
Sure.
and the schedule, and, maybe we can have them come as soon as next week? Okay, anything else on item 8? Item 9, the research agenda, just a quick update. We had a meeting with John Auerbach, the Department of Public Health, a couple of other people from his shop, a couple of people from the Treasurer's Office and the Lottery, one person from the Department of Transportation, and we brainstormed the research RFI. I've been doing a lot of editing to that. It should be ready to go tomorrow for those folks, and anybody here who wants to look at it. And I hope we can get the RFI posted by the end of the day, by the end of the week, but if not, first thing like Monday, so we can get moving on this. It was a useful feedback from those folks, but we do need to get moving. We talked about Partners for Healthier Community. We're going to proceed on that. Before we get to the other business, there is one thing that has come up at the last minute. I just wanted to ask whether you all think we need to do any more discussing of either or both of the Springfield issues now, or do we have our conversations with them on the issue of the scheduling and think about this a little bit? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think as far as the first issue, which is the conflict or perceived conflict, I think until we know the results of the
The
ethics.
ethics report, yeah.
That we could hold that conversation until we're aware of what that is.
I agree, I've
No,
agreed
we
with that
agree.
once, I agree with it again. Although my concern about that is that it will be, if the Ethics Commission comes back saying there's no problem, or saying here's how you can cure the problem, it may well be interpreted as a clean bill of health. And the point that I've been trying to make is I don't think that necessarily is enough. So waiting on that kind of puts us sort of behind the 8 ball. It's my one concern about that. But I think we've agreed to wait anyway, so.
Well, I think we did express our concerns
Yeah.
today. That you know, we didn't ignore that issue today.
Right, and I think if they were listening, they certainly understand our judgments about this issue. And the other one?
Well, it doesn't appear that the city will be issuing the RFR in the next few days, if I read some of the conclusions correctly. So on that notion, I suppose we could come back and think about it, all the notes, all the testimony before us today, and come back and talk about it in a future meeting. But I'd like to venture that it would have to be perhaps next meeting.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if it has to be next meeting. I would, if there's a way that we have overlooked, and we heard about the Detroit experience, I very much would like to know a lot about the Detroit experience. That was held up as the model for the way everything should go.
Right.
I would like to talk to some of the officials in Detroit. I'd like to see what they're, and I'd like to do it expeditiously, because if there's some way that we've overlooked, I mean, I think we've been well advised by our gaming consultants. I think we're trying to proceed as fast as we can. I think some of the issues that we raised today are legitimate issues. On the other hand, if there's something that we overlooked, I really would like to know about that, or some way that we could speed it up. So I would like to reach out to the Detroit folks and have a conversation with them and find out more about their process, find out more about where the statutory scheme was the commission stood up by the time this started, or were they proceeding as we are? That there was some, not some hard data there. So we could find out about that, and I think we can do that quickly, and then have a discussion with it. So I'd like to proceed in that fashion.
I agree with I'm sorry, did I
No.
interrupt? I truly also am interested. I mean, if we're holding up this Detroit model, I want to find out more about it and the scheduling as to whether they were going through a process at the same time the regulatory scheme was being set up. And that process left a lot of authority with the local municipality. They set out their own criteria as to how big they wanted, how many hotels and restaurants they did. It doesn't sound to me, and again, we're going off of just what was shared, that, there was an obligatory or complementary state regulatory process that was aligned with that. I mean, I got the impression it was kind of throw the best proposal out there and the mayor will pick it. And even they commented that the mayor said it was a very subjective process, as opposed to anything that had any type of scoring or might have been even more objective. But, I wonder if, we shouldn't convey in some type of communication back to the mayor appreciation for his team being here today, but, expressing what our continued concerns are and maybe what our next courses of action are relative to what they presented us with today. Just so we keep the lines of communication open and kind of suggest that we still are not blessing the process that they've laid out as it stands right now.
You alluded to this, Mr. Chairman, but the deadline that they have imposed on themselves really runs, has the potential to bump with the process that we have begun to outline, the schedule that we have. I still don't understand why they feel the need to have a host community agreement final, even by the time that we issue the RFA phase 1. I would understand it if that was for phase 2. But they seem to think that they needed to do that for phase 1, or at least that's what the schedule currently suggests.
That's why I think following up with them, I don't understand either. I don't understand why, what they think they're gaining as a practical matter, other than, the mayor's passionate concern about the city, which is totally understandable, and his need and wish to get something going. That I understand. But as a practical matter, how the way our schedule is going to run, I don't understand exactly why it matters so much to them. So that's why I want to have some conversations. I do think we have to move pretty quickly, but I mean, if we're going to take some kind of a strong stand here, it's important to everybody that we do it quickly. We should try to bring this to conclusion next week if we possibly can. If we can't, we can't. But I did talk to our,
Bring what to conclusion, Mr. Chairman?
our, whether or not we're gonna take a position on these two issues. I did talk with our consultants this morning about the Detroit situation, because they had referred to it in their, the city had referred to it in the thing they sent us last night. It's a very different situation in that it was designed to have the city be the decider amongst a whole bunch of bidders to come up with 3 different sites. It's very, very different. As well as, I was told that all 3 of the people had financial trouble. Apparently, at least one did. Somewhere between 1 and 3 had financial trouble. So, you know, I'm not sure how much more information we need, but I'm not at all opposed to figuring out whatever else we can. If we could reach out to Detroit soon and see what they have to say, that would be.
Well, I just think more facts, I didn't realize we had all these facts. I just think facts are helpful things on which to make decisions.
I agree.
There's a unique thought.
So, if we have all the facts, then I'd welcome hearing what they are.
Yeah. The critical points of differentiation that, that the lawyers told me were, 1, it was an intentional process that the city of Detroit was gonna determine who the multiple bidders were gonna be. That was their assigned job. Ours is an unintended consequence. Nobody was anticipating what was going on here. The city is trying to respond to something that was not anticipated. There was no local referendum. And the third point was that I was told all 3 selections had various major players in their financing disqualified, and they had to go back and rejigger their packages. Those were the 3 points that our consultants told me. So I think we're in agreement that we're not gonna do much more on this, not gonna do more on this today. We're gonna check, any of us that thinks there's more data to be gotten, we'll be working with the city to see if there's anything else we can do. And we'll pick this up again next week. The last item, something came up.
Well, as we close on that note, I just hope that we, and I know we do, there's no magic in the city's schedule, and there's no magic in ours. I mean, these are all dictated by forces of one kind or another. And we've got to do our strategic plan next week, which is going to, in 2 weeks, which is going to be a big help to us, at least to me, figuring out where we're going and how we can get there. We met our first goal of getting the Phase 1 regs out at the time we initially set, and at a time when everybody thought was very ambitious, but we did it. And I would like to continue to pursue, as I know we will, discussions with the city to see whether or not a different, what flexibility we both have in terms of trying to meet legitimate needs. I guess that goes without.
Is it fair to throw out a question, and I hesitated to do this when their consultant was here, but is there another process they can pursue that gets them to the same end that they want to achieve, that doesn't keep bumping up against our timeline and our statutory requirements? I don't know the answer to that, or even if that's a fair question to ask them.
It didn't seem like they were willing to consider any other path, frankly.
Well, they had considered them and decided not to do.
Well, maybe that's the way they stay, and so we just, and I'm not suggesting we don't have to do what we have to do. I mean, we have to do what we have to do.
I mean, I can appreciate the goal they're trying to reach. And again, my own viewpoint is if they send a couple potential applicants on their way, maybe that bodes well for the rest of the region or another gaming region. By giving somebody an opportunity, and we've talked about it, they move on to another region.
But how can they send them on their way if they're going to present a $400,000 check to us, which means we will be doing a suitability investigation?
Well, he said send them on their way to another region.
Well,
They can do that.
Prior
still
to
have
that,
well,
We
they
still
don't
have to
have
go
to
through
tell
our-
us, they don't have to tell us where
Yeah.
with the suitability, but we will be conducting that investigation if they become an applicant. So it doesn't speed up the process.
No,
No, but it
I know
does-
what the city's goal is, or at least I think I do. And my comment was, if their process they wind up with two that they want to proceed to negotiations with and proceed to some type of host referendum ballot question with. Do we not, is the state in trying to inject more competition into this process benefit by one or two or three that they choose not to work with, deciding that they will look for other opportunities or other municipalities? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, that's something that when Commissioner McHugh and I first talked with Kevin Kennedy, I actually think there is a possible benefit in that, yes. If three of the four know come December that they're out of the running in Springfield, they have time to rethink in other regions or even other cities in other communities in Western Mass. So I do think that's a side benefit of their truncated process. I do want to say one thing. I've been keeping my powder dry on this, but I've been keeping my powder dry because new facts keep coming along, and I'm open-minded to continuing to talk about this. But I don't feel very comfortable mucking in their RFR process. You know, where it abuts up against our schedule, I think that's a significant issue, and I just don't understand why they're so concerned about that schedule. But in telling them which process they should use or questioning them about which process they should use, I think we have the authority to ask those questions if we want to, because we have very broad authority. But personally, I'm not very comfortable with that. I think that they were empowered to figure out the way they want to do the host community, or not even have a host community agreement, or whatever. That's up to them. If they do it in a way that I think is suboptimal, that's their business. I do have a problem with the schedule, but I'm not comfortable. Some of the questions that we asked when they were here was really mucking around and, you know, what criteria are you going to use for them? And I personally don't feel like that's really an appropriate role for us.
Unless it affects the integrity of the process.
Yes, I agree.
And I think it is a role for us.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with that. I've been clear on that.
There's a fundamental piece there, as long as we've just dipped into the powder locker. That is very difficult.
Springfield Armory.
And that at the Springfield Armory, right, that's appropriate. Saying that somebody has to enter an agreement with somebody else is a almost impossible thing to enforce, if you think about it. And so, because after all, what we're talking about is an agreement as to which two sides have to agree. Otherwise, there's no agreement. And therefore, to say at a very this is at a very fundamental level, that any two people have to agree on something is to invite an outcome that's unenforceable. And for that reason, I mean, there's a basic principle in the law that it's an analogous thing, that no court will enter an order requiring somebody to fulfill an employment contract. There may be damages for breaching the contract, but nobody's going to require that somebody fulfill an employment contract, because you can't enforce it. And I think there's a fundamental issue of the same kind running through this.
I'm missing that. What is it?
If we were to say, for example, that because there's 4 applicants, there's got to be 4 host community agreements put up to a vote, we would be in effect saying to the city, not this city, but any city, you've got to enter into an agreement with somebody.
Right.
So you're
how are you going to
sort of agreeing
enforce
with
that?
what I was saying?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
okay. Good.
Sorry, I should have referenced that by saying, I agree.
Now I get you.
It's 5:30, that's why.
All right.
Now you agree,
Yeah,
right?
now
Now you get it,
Now I
right?
get it, yeah, right. Okay.
So, I mean, it's really very difficult to muck that deeply into the process and say, you gotta have an agreement.
Yeah, if I put myself in the mayor's shoes, if I were in the mayor's shoes, you know, I would want to take control of this process. There are issues of transparency. I'm totally with you on that. I don't think I would be doing it the same way, but I feel like this is his. But for the schedule issue, that this is his right. So that's just for the record.
We may be in disagreement with that, and
Yeah,
I appreciate your eloquence and thought. I believe that the legislation put the matter in the hands of the voters by referendum. And I understand and appreciate that it's hard to enforce an agreement, but I don't think the issue that I see is the whittling down or the narrowing down that that they're setting themselves to do. I'm encouraged that they're thinking about doing it transparently. And from that perspective, my questions as to how they're going to be scored are fundamental. And I understand that it's difficult because these proposals are going to be, well, to begin with, they're going to be in different sites. And that in and of itself has complications. But the public, especially here, needs to be comforted that everybody was given a fair shot. And I think that's a paramount objective here, and one that concerns this commission. And I think that we have not seen the RFR, which we have asked for. I'd love to see it because it could hopefully inform potential bidders as to how they will be selected. I did not take much in the way of details from the presentation, but
Okay, well, I think we've probably done as much of this as we can. We do have one other important issue that if we're ready to move on for Springfield. Enrique, Commissioner Zuniga and I had a phone call this morning, I guess, with an investment banker that we've been talking to about this idea of going to New York and talking to the financial markets. And as we began to realize if we're going to do this trip, we need to do it quickly because teams are probably being put together now. We ask this party two questions. First, does it really make any sense for us to do this, or are we really just kind of kidding ourselves? Is there any value that we could add by going to Wall Street and happy talking about what's going on in Massachusetts? Or were we kind of kidding ourselves and that we weren't going to really add value, in which case the conversation is over? They felt quite strongly and quite articulately that we could have a material impact on equity players, not on debt. The Bank of America types are going to belly up to this or not, depending on whatever, but there's plenty of debt out there. But the equity partners and some casino developers who are on the sidelines might very well be interested in our process. Same point you made, Commissioner Stebbins, about people like to know what the rules are, what the rules of the road are. And he said at a minimum, there's no downside. And he said quite firmly, I believe that it's additive. I think I think the bidders would appreciate it. There is a way, and we said this is not something we're sure we can do, but he said there might be a way to talk with people who we know to be bidders, to have, if they're having trouble financing or if there are any issues that we could address. So I take them at face value. They came back saying, yes, they really felt that it was a worthwhile trip. Our second question then was, is there a way to do this at a price that we can live with? And the investment banking world is such an incredibly expensive world. And as I said to them, they just live with numbers that just don't make any sense to anybody else on earth. And we talked about that, and they did indicate some flexibility. We separated out the possibility of procuring them to help us negotiate with the bidders in due time. That's a different issue, and that's a big project. And this particular firm, but others have done the same thing, have helped Ohio and New York and the governments in other states negotiate and structure deals. That's a different issue. This is simply to consult with us to put together a little bit of a road show where probably a couple of us would go to and hit a very targeted, they're quite knowledgeable about who the people are that would be potential investors. They talked about the fact that Carl Icahn is sitting on the sidelines now, and he frequently is an equity player in casino deals. So I think we came away with believing that if we could figure out a way to do it, it probably would be a good idea. We can procure from amongst from this investment banker and a handful of others that we know, we can do a pretty speedy procurement for anything up to $150,000. They are willing to bill us on an hourly rate, and their rates, excuse me, are in the nature of the big law firms. You know, they're anywhere from $1,000 an hour for the principals to $250 for relatively junior people. So it would end up being a lot of money. I think it would make us very, very distinctive. I think it puts real teeth to our mission statement, where we talk about we want to have an industry here that can make an honest, an appropriate return on investment in order that it serves the community well. And I think we might be able to add something. Is it worth that kind of money? I think that's a decision we have to make. So we wanted to get your first of all, see whether if I said it right, A, and then B, get everybody's feedback on this.
I think you said it right. I would only add that there's something that we hadn't discussed much, and that is engaging or having conversations with developers, not just equity partners. And you alluded to that, but you
Right.
did it briefly.
Yeah.
So this notion of going to Wall Street is perhaps better summarized as engaging with players, equity partners and potential developers who may be in the sidelines. But it also includes the potential of speaking to some of the current players as to what they may be thinking in terms of detail that they have not yet seen, or questions that they have not put forward. I mean, there's been a local hearing process for that, but it's a little bit limited to the regulations that we've set forth.
It's obviously a precondition here that if we were to do this, we would figure out a way. We'd have to make very sure that there was absolute equity to we talk to everybody the same way, everybody has the same opportunity, that kind of thing. So that's a precondition.
Yep.
So what do you folks think?
If we can do this to increase competition or increase the facility with which those already in play can get funds to commit, I think it's a good idea. I think we have to do it. If we're going to do it, we do it quickly, because the qualification piece is about to get going. And I also think that before we do it, we ought to get some advice from a securities lawyer about what we can do and what we can't do. I would be, once we get into this area, about which I know absolutely nothing, except that it's shark infested, we need to be...
Unlike our business.
Unlike, yes. Well, this is like life in the aquarium. I think we really need to have a handle on what we can say to whom, the kinds of things that we can say to whom. And I think there's probably broad guidelines. This is not a unique mission, but I think it is one that's that we need to be a little careful on. So I would value a brief consultation from a securities lawyer.
Yeah, okay, good point. Anybody else? Commissioners?
I think it's worth exploring. Again, it'd be great if it helps generate more competition, but it may be helpful to the operators whom we know who are out there
Right.
shoring up confidence that from their lending institutions.
If it were something that we could do for $25,000, I wouldn't even, I'd blink, I'd be pushing the idea. They think this is gonna be a couple of months' work to really make this really good, and to then get the appointments and go with us on the appointments. They think it's gonna be a couple of months of work, which is, it's gonna be real money. We're talking somewhere probably between 50 and the 150,000. I mean, the cap, I think we can cap it. But I just wanna make sure that, that is a lot of money. It's the kind of value that an organization like this can give us. I mean, if we got one additional bidder, that's worth, I think, a fortune. If we made the markets a little easier for any of our bidders, that's clearly worth a lot of money, and this is a very specialized kind of expertise. So this is what the market bears, but I just want to make sure that we have thought it through.
Keeping in mind that time frame as they've laid it out, if it is a couple of months. You know, with some respect, you know, we've had some entities that have ponied up the $400,000. Does that give us kind of leeway to pose this question to those whom we know are going to be applicants? I mean, the
To
general.
ask if they think it would be useful?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I mean, they're officially at this stage part of the process. Does that plunking down the check give us the opportunity to bounce this
Do you think
type
this-
of question off of them?
Would
I
this
don't
be a-
know.
Would this be a value add?
I would ask a different question of them actually, but I think it's an interesting notion to ask of them some questions, which is what type of information or what variables do you see in the statute, let's say, or what we've put forward so far in our regulations, or what do you think needs clarity in the phase 2 regulations that is really making you make some projections or not? I think those could be very valuable
Yeah,
questions.
but he's recommending, yeah, it's a different question.
understand.
So you're saying
Right.
take the opportunity to maybe get more detailed.
Yeah, well, take the opportunity to ask those who are applicants indeed, and they are in a different category, as to what is it that you are, that you see as variables that you need to plug into your financial models, because that determines the other variables that where you need definition from this commission.
I think those would be questions we would be asking if we do decide to make this trip, because we'd be looking for data points.
Right.
Well, probably most of our bidders are watching or are here, and there's certainly, you're all hearing us, we're looking for, we're discussing this issue, and I think we're open to advice on whether it's a good idea or not. If anybody's got it, I think we'd be interested. Whether we could reach out and ask, do you have any instinctive response to that?
I don't see why we couldn't, as long as we do it in a public, transparent way.
Do it in an even-handed way, right?
And I think that if we do this, I would anticipate coming back with another, would there be a sharper proposal, or is?
Yeah, I think we would have to put the,
I
we would
think
have
we
to.
need to
put
have
the-
an agenda item where we
No, no.
discuss this and
Yes.
then take a vote on it.
Right,
Yeah.
what I think we were looking for was a sense,
Yeah.
and whether, if you can ask, if you're comfortable having us go ahead and try to tee this up further quickly, then we'll do that. It sounds like that is the consensus.
Right,
I think it's worth pursuing.
Okay. Whew,
okay.
that was almost 5 hours. Anything else on anybody's agenda?
Surrender.
Do we have a motion to take a nap? No, to adjourn.
So moved.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Wow.